What the hand? Is this guy crazy?
Nothing but a peanut.
Hi guys, Acesup for PokerNerve here, and what the hand? I just posted this hand that I played today and got some interesting comments, and it is an interesting hand, so I just wanted to talk through it. Let's just see it first without the cards exposed. We get what looks like a steal from cutoff, and I hit him with a 3-bet. He calls ace queen 9 flop. I c-bet, he calls turn 7. There's 2 flush draws now. I check, he checks. And the river I check call here is just over half pot size bet. And the hands were the mighty Jack High meets the mighty King High. So why did I make this call on the end? Let's just go through this hand. So it starts off pretty interesting, I guess. Why did I opt to 3-bet here? Well, this opponent, he'd been pretty loosey-goosey. He had been folding to a reasonable percentage of 3-bets, but when you're loosey-goosey, I mean, you just have to really, don't you? Because a lot of the time you're opening with trash. So I still expect him to be a little bit sticky. We could call the King 8 off. You know, I'm going to 3-bet or call with it. I did opt to 3-bet at this time because we get pretty good leverage out of our stack. We do have the best hand a fair bit against this guy. I think just taking the initiative and just trying to keep the hand clean, I expect to take it down a lot pre-flop, is probably going to be a better way to go than just calling. This is a hand that doesn't flop particularly well. And, you know, even if we get our dream flop, like, you know, say we get King 9, 5 or something, you know, just checking and hanging on and hope he barrels is one way we can get value. But it's just going to be a little bit awkward post-flop most of the time with this hand. So I decided to get a bit aggressive with it here in 3-bet. And not too surprisingly, my loosey-goosey friend called here. On the flop, I think it could go either way. You could probably just give up. But given the fact that he is a bit loosey-goosey and he can have a few things like, you know, King 5 suited, stuff like that. Maybe he's got pocket 3s even. Certainly not a good player, a little bit on the fishy side. So I think, you know, you could have a range of hands. And just giving up, yeah, it didn't feel too good, but I definitely couldn't fault someone just for giving up here. I think it's pretty close, just because the board is so bad. So he calls, unfortunately, and I kind of think about giving up at that point, and then it gets to the river, and now he bets. Kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when I see this sizing where he's going a little bit on the bigger side over half pot. Now, if he had a hand like, well, I think any pair above sort of 6s, he's probably just going to jam pre. So let's, you know, once in a while, I guess he could have trapped us with aces, but, you know, barring that, you know, rare situation, most of the time he hasn't, you know, flop trips or anything like that. So what about 2 pairs? Well, ace queen probably gets it in pre, ace 9 probably. But even if he did just call us with, say, ace 9 off pre-flop, how does he not bet the turn? I mean, there's 2 flushes. I mean, there's just such a draw-heavy board. I think weaker opponents are normally going to just bet for protection and value on that board and not slow play a hand like ace 9 if he happens to have that. Especially this guy, he's been aggressive. I mean, he probably just gets it in on the flop too. You know, if he's got a flush draw, he probably does the same thing. I mean, unless he's called us with, say, you know, 5, 6 of hearts and a really weak flush. But even then, you know, he might just jam flop or bet turn. So it's looking unlikely that he's got sort of a 2-pair hand or, I mean, even 7-9, if he happened to have 7-9 suited and called flop, I mean, he's going to bet turn with that. It doesn't really look like flushes. It doesn't really look like, you know, 2 pairs or combinations that it could have turned into houses or trips or anything like that. So what the hell has he got? What the hand? Well, the big candidate here is definitely the 10-jack, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing that really makes the most sense. A lot of times opponents won't necessarily want to bloat the pot with a straight draw when there's a flush draw possibility as well. I do think that just calling on the flop by him is probably okay if he did have 10-jack. And then I guess he's checked on the turn for the free card, hoping to hit. But now he's got a bet to win on the river. And so he's gone with a fairly chunky size that looks like he is trying to get a fold. 10-jack, 16 combinations looks like the most likely hand. I guess once in a while he could have floated with King 10 or something like that. Not impossible, but we do have a King blocker. And we do chop with that hand anyway. So it looks like 10-jack. I guess the other possibility once in a while, he's just gone for value here with ace-6. He's got ace-6 of spades and he's just sort of pot-controlled turn and then thinks, hey, I'll get some value. But I don't really think he's going to bet that big because we look pretty weak. Best case in his eyes, we probably have kings or, queen 10 or something like that. I think that he's probably going to taper his bet sizing down a bit just to try and get calls from some of those weaker hands. If he does value bet it, I mean, some weaker opponents on scary boards don't even value bet that thinly. But he certainly could have some smaller races. And it's either that or the 10-jack. And given the fact that we only have to call around 30,000 to win 90 now, we only have to be right about 25% of the time. I just don't think we can pass up the opportunity to hero call here with the king high. I really did feel that he had the 10-jack, I must admit. I mean, it just didn't smell right. It didn't look right at all, the way he just sort of, checked back pretty quick turn and then thought for a while and punched out a pretty big bet on the river. And so made the call and, well, this time looked like a genius. And, a certain other percentage of the time looked like a huge fish calling with king high. This time, we thankfully weren't the fish. He was the fish, and that's the way I like it. This has been Acesup for PokerNerve. What the hand?